Welcome back. All right, so we've got News of the Day video all set for all you fine people. Today, Thursday, March 3rd, two small trades that took place yesterday, so we can talk about this first. Alex Stalock acquired by the San Jose Sharks in exchange for future considerations. And the Sharks have recalled Stalock. So James Reimer getting hurt the other night, it makes sense they're going to want to pick up a veteran. Good news with Stalock. Stalock, as recently as, a couple months ago, there was debate about whether or not he was going to play again. And here he is. He's back in the NHL, and that's great news. So I wish Stalock all the best. I'm wearing San Jose because I do wish him a lot of success. But yeah, we'll see how this all ends up, because San Jose definitely could use an NHL level backup. And nothing against Miroshenko. However, doesn't have that experience, and if they are going to make a push, who knows? Maybe Stalock goes in there and plays lights out. He has had some good runs before, so I wish him the best. Michael McNiven's been picked up by Calgary in exchange for future considerations going to the Montreal Canadiens. So future considerations can mean a lot of things. Very often it means there's nothing going back the other way. Sometimes it can mean that if a player hits a certain number of games played, if you win a certain number of games with a goaltender, maybe it'll trigger a 7th or a 6th rounder going the other way, that kind of thing. But in general, it's usually nothing going the other way other than a contract spot, which at this time of year is important. So that adds a contract to San Jose, takes it away from Edmonton, adds a contract to Calgary, takes it away from Montreal. And so we'll see if Montreal or Edmonton make any signings over the next week or so, right? So New York Ranger news, Kaapo Kakko is seen as being at least a few weeks away. Upper body injury for him, and it's too bad because he was having a good year. Kakko may never be a guy who wows you with his goal totals and his point totals, but he's a pretty good two-way forward. The comparison that I find myself going towards is Bobby Holik, who became a very elite level defensive forward. He had a couple of very good offensive seasons, but basically was very, very good defensively. And I think Kakko could end up going in that same direction. Kevin Rooney, week to week with an upper body injury as well. So the Rangers, going through a little bit of their own issues with injuries. The one thing for the Rangers is, as long as they got Shesterkin in net, they're going to win their share of games. And that's how it works with the Rangers. Igor is fantastic. Chris Kreider, 18 power play goals on the season. What's impressive with that is that the team record is 24, held by Jaromir Jagr. And so Kreider has a pretty good shot at breaking that record. And with the way that the puck's going in the net for him right now, I would not be surprised to see him eclipse that record before the season's done. Kreider's had an amazing year. The Rangers have to be very, very happy that this isn't his contract year. They already extended him. They didn't trade him when they were doing their retool. And they have to be very happy they kept him around. So Kreider's had a fantastic year. Shesterkin's had a great year. Panarin, Fox. There are some really good players playing for the Rangers right now. I may do a video on the Rangers today in regards to what might happen with them at the deadline. So, Chicago. Riley Stillman, Calvin DeHaan, Jonathan Toews, and Tyler Johnson. What do they all have in common? They're all likely or confirmed to come back and play tonight. I've seen confirmation with Stillman, DeHaan, and Toews. Tyler Johnson, it's just, I think it's going to happen because yesterday at practice, it was reported that he was on a line with Toews and DeBrincat, and generally, if you're going to put a guy on a line like that, it means he's ready to come back. So Chicago's going to get a lot healthier, so Edmonton might be a little more of a challenge, or for Chicago, maybe it'll be a chemistry thing with all these players coming in, but I don't think so. I think it'll be good, and it'll be interesting to see how Tyler Johnson does in his return. Jack Eichel is going to get watched a lot because he had the artificial disc replacement. So did Tyler Johnson. So both of these players will kind of maybe be a litmus test about whether or not players can get back to where they were after having that surgery. So, yeah, it'll be interesting to see how Johnson does. Speaking of contracts, coming back to this part here, talking about teams freeing up contract slots. NCAA signings could start as soon as this weekend, likely to start this weekend. I haven't been reporting on the undrafted players who are getting signed because there's a lot of them. And for the most part, most people wouldn't necessarily know who they were, and there's no way of telling which ones are going to be successful in the NHL and which ones aren't. Sometimes you will see a top scorer in the WHL, QMJHL, OHL, gets signed, and you're like, wow, that guy's a really good scorer at the junior level. Can't wait to see him in the NHL. And then it doesn't happen. So we'll see which NCAA players sign. Of course, with the NCAA guys, there are some players who've been drafted who could be signed as soon as this weekend. And for the junior age guys too, for the undrafted, some of them aren't just undrafted. Some of them were drafted, could not come to an agreement on a contract with the team that drafted them, and now are free agents. So that can happen on both sides. It's not just NCAA guys that can opt out of signing. Junior age guys can as well. So that should be interesting to watch, and we'll see how quickly, once Michigan season's done, some of the bigger names in Michigan get signed, because those are the ones that people are really going to be keeping an eye on, right? So draft prospect out of Russia, Ivan Miroshenko. And I will do my best to learn that as well as I can and have it so it flows a little smoother. But he's a 2022 draft prospect, and it's been made known that he is battling Hodgkin's lymphoma. Hodgkin's lymphoma is a tough one, but if it's caught early and it's treated properly, it is something that he should recover from, of course. And so all the best to him. And we'll see what that does to his draft stock, because that can affect his draft stock a little bit. Also, the fact, too, with what's going on and everything with Russian players, how will that affect them being drafted? Will they be drafted later? And which GM is going to look at the current situation and say it's not going to stay this way? I will still be willing to draft the Russian players. That may end up being a really smart way of going, but for general managers, we'll see which way they fall on that issue, right? So hopefully he recovers quickly from Hodgkin's, but it will take him out for now. He won't be able to do his workouts and all that. So again, all the best to him. From the AHL, and this is a bit of later news, Lukas Dostal, the goalie of the future for the Anaheim Ducks, scores a goal last night into the empty net for San Diego. So that's great. Dostal providing a story about that as well, and how he almost got an empty netter previously at a lower level of hockey, that the puck went few inches or 10 to 15 centimeters wide, but that he was fine with that because they won the game 1-0. So it's always great to see, and of course that starts the whole conversation of which NHL goalie is the next one that's going to score a goal. I don't want to bet against Fleury, but I could see Markstrom. I could see Talbot. There are a few goaltenders I could see taking a shot at that empty net. There's always that moment late in the game where you'll see a goalie get it and he'll look, and you're thinking he's gonna try, and then they don't. So I do enjoy that quite a bit, though. Hopefully we see an empty netter soon from one of the goalies in the NHL, maybe before the end of this season, right? Speaking of goaltenders, seems to be a goaltender-heavy news video today. With Samsonov out, Zach Fucale's been called up by the Washington Capitals. He will be backing up Vitek Vanacek tonight. Fucale has already shown that he's decent at the NHL level. He is. His numbers weren't bad for Washington when he was called up earlier in the season. So I think they're comfortable with Fucale as need be. I do wonder, because Samsonov's had kind of a rough year, if maybe there's a nagging injury that might explain all of that. But they do have some depth in net, as Washington usually does. And so for now, it'll be Vanacek tending the net. I think Vanacek's going to be the starter anyways once we get into the playoffs. So that is unless Columbus catches them. And for Columbus to catch them, Zach Werenski and Jonas Korpisalo both close to returning. And there's other injuries with Columbus as well. We'll see if they're able to get that all cleared up and maybe catch the Washington Capitals. They're 8 points back. So it is a lot to make up, but the way that Washington's been struggling lately, and there was that, I think, 8 wins out of 10 that Columbus had. If they can go on another one of those runs, they can make things uncomfortable very quickly for the Washington Capitals. Speaking of teams where things are kind of uncomfortable, Nick Ehlers for the Winnipeg Jets. He returns tomorrow against Dallas. He's declared himself able to come back. As a Dallas fan, I hope that he has a lot of success and that they're able to win the game after the one tomorrow against Dallas. So just throwing that out there. But all kidding aside, Ehlers is one of my favorite players in Winnipeg. I think Connor's my favorite. But Ehlers is up there, hardworking, really good two-way forward, that if you don't watch the Jets all the time, You may not understand just how important he is, but he's a very important forward, and getting him back could be huge. The Jets are in tough. They're in tough for making the playoffs. They need to get healthy and stay healthy and then get some breaks. They need to win their games and then hope that the teams ahead of them are falling back. So, yeah, Ehlers coming back at exactly the right time, and the Jets hoping to stay healthy from here. This is an interesting one. Rick Dhaliwal reporting on the Canucks. And it's an interesting battle between... Sometimes it feels like it's the Canucks against their own fans. And I try not to jump on this. So Brock Besser right now, there's a lot of talk about whether or not he's going to get traded, because 2 weeks ago it was JT Miller, and now it's all Brock Besser. And honestly, I hope the Canucks don't trade Besser, but I get the feeling that eventually there's just too much smoke. There's going to be fire, and he's going to get traded. But it is interesting that what Rick Dhaliwal is reporting is essentially that the Canucks really enjoy playing in Vancouver. Their agents, though, talking about how some of the fans basically on Twitter are crazy, which isn't crazy or just not exactly... How do I put this? There are times where I think there needs to be a separation between the players and the fans, and some fans understand that, and I think there's some fans that just don't. And the idea of adding a player and telling them that they suck and they're terrible and what the hell was that? And it's weird because, like, in general on this channel, I don't slam players. I don't talk about, like last night, Rasmus Sandin had a rough game. He ends up being a -2. He was on the ice for 3 goals against, but he had a rough night, and it happens. It happens to everybody. Every player has those rough games. So I don't resort to the, well, this guy sucks kind of thing. And there are those that will. That from one moment to the next, it'll change very, very quickly. And it feels like there's some fan bases that are a little more reactionary. And it feels like in Vancouver, it's a very reactionary crowd. That one moment it'll be, we're going to win the cup, we're the greatest, and then 10 minutes later, what? Why are we terrible? We need to just tank and tear it apart. Could be the same game that they go from, we need to just tank and tear everything apart. Oh, they came back and won. We're winning the cup. So I understand that's an issue, but it's funny because I've heard the argument of, well, these players signed elsewhere because the fans, and I don't think that's a thing. If that's been a thing, I would love to have somebody explain to me how that's been a thing where a player has said, hey, I wanted to stay in Vancouver, but man, Twitter just made me decide I'm not going to stick around. I don't know that I can cross that bridge and find peace on the other side of it. I don't know that I agree with that. But I'd be interested to know what you guys think. Do you think that for players that a social media environment that they deem as being toxic, involving fans, maybe it involves media, that affects whether or not they want to stay in that city? Or do you think it's all kind of blown out of proportion? Because I've also heard with Vancouver that, well, the media is too tough on them, so they don't want to go to Vancouver, which is so weird. Because we've heard Edmonton's too hard on them, Montreal, Toronto, Winnipeg, of course, Blake Wheeler talking about Winnipeg. And it's bizarre to me because it's like, I don't know. Maybe it's all the Canadian markets. Maybe that's part of it. I'd be interested to know what you guys think in the comment section below, as always. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through. You just happened upon this video. And hey, here's to hoping Besser doesn't get traded. Honestly, I don't know what I would do if I was in charge of things in Vancouver, because I do like this team. I do like the roster they've got put together, mostly. And the parts that I'm not really sold on, I'm not sure how you fix it. So without trading out players I really like, and that's the problem. You have to trade guys you really like in order to get those pieces you need, and you really like the players. So anyways, let me know your thoughts. Thank you guys so much for all your support. It means a lot. I will talk to you again soon.